Hey everybody, welcome back to our furniture flipping adventure. I'm Sarah, and today I found another clock that I'm going to be making over. I actually really like the way it looks. My husband wasn't too keen of it, but it's got a lot of dings and the finish is just ruined, so we're gonna have to start over and give it something fresh. I found this clock at an auction and apparently nobody but me wanted it because I got it for $11 and I'm so excited. So let's go ahead and get started flipping. I'm using my go-to cleaner, which is Crud Cutter. It's a cleaner and degreaser, and it will just help to remove any oils or dust left on the piece from the previous owner. Now this piece isn't too dirty, but it's always best practice to clean because you never can tell where in the cracks and crevices the dust is hiding, and it'll help the paint adhere better overall. After I'm done with my Crud Cutter, I'll go back over with a fresh water rinse just to make sure that there's no cleaner left over on my piece. And then I will head straight into sanding. Sanding will help me smooth out the rough bits of missing finish and will prepare my piece for paint. Once I finish the sanding, I'm going to have to go over it with a damp rag just to remove all the sanding dust, and then it'll be ready for paint. Painting is by far my favorite part. I'm going to be blending here in these framed areas, so I'm going to start by just putting on a really quick thick layer onto the main body of the piece. Now I've chosen a light blue, and I can't really tell you what color it is because it's a color that I've mixed with different whites and grays, and it's just its own color. I don't have a name for it. And then in the center, I'm going to be adding some Fluff by Dixie Belle. So I have the 3 different brushes, the one for the blue paint, the one for the white paint, and then a third brush that will be my blending brush. Now, my first go at blending, I'm just kind of getting the colors where I think I want them and kind of seeing how they look. It'll definitely need a second coat, so your first go doesn't have to be anywhere near perfect. And I find it easier if you use a good healthy portion of paint and then some water to help move that paint around. If you're not using enough paint or your paint dries out too fast, you really can't blend it. Now, I was doing this on a rather warm day and I did struggle some with getting the paint to blend and having enough water to keep it moving around because it was drying so fast. So if you can avoid the heat, do so. It'll help you out. This front portion was actually the one that gave me the biggest trouble because I wasn't sure where I wanted the blending to start and where I wanted to stop, if I wanted to do it more circular or squarish, and it's already an awkward shape, so the brush didn't glide super easily across it, and I was worried that it wasn't going to turn out alright, especially after the first coat. But by the second one, I was more convinced. Now, I'm relatively new to this whole blending process, but it really isn't very difficult, so if you haven't tried it out, I would definitely recommend trying it. It's not much more difficult than running a brush back and forth, up and down, crissy-crossy, and getting the paints to blend together. As long as you're using enough paint and you're using enough water to keep the paints fluid, you're not going to have much trouble. It's not very often that I find pieces that are taller than me, because normally I'm sticking to dressers and things like that. I'm close to 5'10", so As you can see, the clock is quite tall and I had to get up on my tippy toes sometimes to reach the top, and I finally pulled out a stool to get all the way to the top of that crown. My second coat through, I used lots of water and lots of paint again, and I only needed the 2 coats, but the second time through, the base here went a lot more smoothly, and I got it to a point where I was pleased with the outcome. Thank goodness, because I did not want to do a 3rd coat. So what I did differently was just going with a smaller white portion to start with, and then blending it out further than I had last time. So I used very long and even strokes to go back and forth across, and then up and down topways. Topways? Is that how? Up and down and back and forth, and I kept doing that until it was soft and blended out the way that I wanted it. So now that I have the paint and the blending right to how I want it, I'm going to be finishing it off with a coat of wax. I'm going to be using Varathane's Classic Paste Finishing Wax. It's a little more runny than some of the other waxes that I've used, but it smells amazing, and this piece doesn't need a whole lot of protection. It's not going to get cup set on it. At least I don't think so. And it's not going to see a whole lot of touching and moving around. It's just going to sit in a corner and be gorgeous. So this is going to do the job just fine. I'm probably only going to need to put 1 coat on, and then we'll get to some gold, because I debated for a while on whether I wanted to put gold on or not, and I actually sent a picture to my sister and she voted gold. So I need very little encouragement to add gold. So next up we'll be adding gold. But first, we got to add some protection to our paint, because there's no point in painting it gorgeous if I'm not going to protect it afterwards. So this wax gets wiped on quite quickly, and then you let it dry for 15 to 20 minutes depending on your area and how quickly things dry, and then you come back through with a cloth to wipe off any excess and buff it in. And now for my favorite part. Here comes the gold. This is my first time using this gold wax from Redesign with Prima, and it actually also smelled pretty good, and it went on beautifully, and I'm quite pleased with it. Normally I use the Rub and Buff, but this time I went ahead and bought the big tube of decor wax from Redesign. It's called Eternal, and it's a bright gold and looks absolutely fabulous. I was very pleased with it, and I only needed to do 1 coat for great coverage. And that is so important, because nobody wants to go over these details twice. I didn't even want to go over them once. I got about halfway through and I got so tired of doing all those tiny little brush motions that I almost wimped out and skipped on some portions. But in the end, I knew I would not be pleased with that, so I painstakingly went over all that molding, going back and forth until it looked just gorgeous. And I'm so glad that I put the gold on, but it is a tedious process. So if you're looking at doing a project like this one took me about an hour and a half. of standing out there and reaching and squatting and sweating in the hot sun. So it's definitely a process. But as you're going to see, it's a process that's so well worth it because it takes it up to such a fabulous level. And I can't wait for you to see the finished product. So my hands aren't always the steadiest, and I did get some gold off of the trim, but it's really as easy as wiping on some clear wax to reactivate it and then wiping it off with a rag. Alright everyone, we've reached the end of our project, and I know I say it all the time, but I'm so pleased with how it turned out. I am in love with this piece, and it may be one of my favorite ones that I've ever done. It actually only cost me $11 at auction, and then I put probably $10 of paint and top coat and gold onto it. So really, we're under $25, which is fantastic. And if I had room for a clock and it went with my house, I'd be keeping it, but I don't. So like most of the pieces I do, I will be selling it, but I actually have no idea what to even list this for. So I hope that you will comment down below, give me some ideas. I also don't know how to stage it, so if you guys could help me out with that, I'd really appreciate it. And I'll be getting photos taken and the listing up as soon as I figure out all the things. So thank you guys so much for joining me today on this fun flip. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope you all come back and join us on Wednesday for our next flip, and I'll see you guys then. I'm Sarah with our furniture flipping adventure. Bye now.